Leading Britain's conversation, The Nigel Farage Show.
Mr. Nigel Farage.
Thank you, Donald, and good evening, everybody. As it hits 35 degrees centigrade, that's 95 Fahrenheit in old money in West London today, and the all-time July record of 36.7 is under threat tomorrow. I'm sure many of you are very hot and bothered. And I tell you what, the European Union have been very hot and bothered about Donald Trump over the course of the last few months. Firstly, he slaps tariffs on their steel and, as he calls it, aluminium. Then he describes the European Union in a press conference as the foe and says the day before Jean-Claude Juncker turns up at the White House that tariffs are really great. I mean, I'm sure he did that just to really incense everybody, including Jean-Claude Juncker. And yet, this very, very tough approach, whilst at the same time saying, well, I tell you what, guys, if you were to just get rid of your tariffs, we get rid of ours. Last night, something pretty remarkable happened in the White House. Let's listen to a press conference that took place between Trump and Jean-Claude Juncker.
We're starting the negotiation right now, but we know very much where it's going. We also will resolve the steel and aluminum tariff issues, and we will resolve retaliatory tariffs. We have some tariffs that are retaliatory, and that will get resolved as part of what we're doing. And with that, Jean-Claude, please.
Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, when I was invited by the President to the White House, I had one intention. I had the intention to make a deal today, and we made a deal today. We have identified a number of areas on which to work together. Work towards zero tariffs on industrial goods. That was my main intention.
Quite remarkable. You know, to go from a looming trade war to, and Trump even allowed Jean-Claude Juncker to kiss him on the cheek, European style. And Trump then tweeting back, obviously the European Union, as represented by Juncker, we truly love each other. That may have been a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but hey, it is a remarkable thing. Why has it happened? Well, Donald Trump issued a threat. And you know something? They took it seriously. Certainly the German car manufacturers, and I suspect the French wine producers and others, and there must have been an absolutely huge amount of pressure put on the European Commission by member state governments and those big companies. So let's just think about this. They've agreed in principle to have a tariff-free deal on all industrial goods. The cars are not yet sorted, but on all other industrial goods. And to have that deal with the European Union, the United States is paying no money. The United States will not engage with Europe in the free movement of people, and there'll be no jurisdiction of the European Court of Justice. I would say that Donald Trump has achieved more in one day of trade negotiations than Theresa May has achieved in 2 years. Why? Because the only thing the European Commission respect are people who are tough. They don't respect people who constantly appease them. I know I've called her Theresa the Appeaser on this show, and I'm going to say it again because that's what she is. And the irony of all of this, I was in Trump Tower 3 days after he was elected. I remember talking to his staff. One of the things they were excited about was doing a bilateral trade deal with the United Kingdom. You know, and let's face it, we are the biggest investors in each other's countries. There's a lot of trade goes on between us, but if it was made smoother, there could be just a whole lot more. They were excited about it, but what has happened as we firstly take 9 months to trigger Article 50, we then enter into a 2-year period in which we can't sign trade deals, and then we sign up under this Prime Minister for a transition period. It basically means that it's a minimum of 5 years from the vote until we even have the prospect of signing a trade deal with the US. And I think they've pretty much lost respect for us. They've talked tough with the European Union. They've come to a compromise. And I don't think that it's just America that now thinks Britain isn't serious. I think much of the rest of the world takes that view. So the question tonight is, does Juncker and Trump doing a deal mean that Britain is at the back of the queue? Remember Obama telling us, If you vote for Brexit, you'll be at the back of the queue. Well, we're at the back of the queue, not because of Brexit. We're at the back of the queue. Not because of Donald Trump, we're at the back of the queue. Not because of Jean-Claude Juncker, we're at the back of the queue because of a dithering Prime Minister that the rest of the world does not believe in. Tell me, should we be worried about this? If you think, no, it'll all be okay in the end, call 0345 6060 973. Or maybe like me, you think, this is not really very good. In which case, text to 84850. Or maybe you think it doesn't matter anyway because the agreement will never stick. And if that's what you think, you can tweet using the hashtag Farage and LBC at LBC, and you can watch me on Facebook and comment there too. Have we put ourselves to the back of the queue? Sean is a new caller from Mansfield. Good evening, Sean.
I'm in Matfield, Kent, Nigel. We met briefly in Bromley South Station, 2010. We sat next to each other on the train.
Right. Well, Sean, I have to confess, you have the advantage on me. I hope I was polite.
He was polite. We squeezed into second-class travel, everybody. He's very normal. And we chatted for 20 minutes going to Victoria Station, and he blew by. 2010, the year he was going to take on Burko in his constituency.
That's right. That's right. It was just sort of weeks before I nearly killed myself in that plane crash. Yeah, no, absolutely. So, Sean...
You're a brave man.
Sean, thank you for calling in. You've never called before. It was remarkable, wasn't it, to see Trump and Juncker coming to an agreement?
What really annoys me, I've been in business 20 years. I grew the business from Bromley in Kent.
Yep.
And I see negotiators who are not business people in government. I see the European Union not business people. I see Trump as a businessman. And they're going to say everything he wants to hear, actually, Juncker, just to roll over the Brits. The problem is, this 27 nations, only takes one province in Serbia to block the whole deal, like in Canada, with the deal thing with the United States.
That was Wallonia, wasn't it? The Walloon Parliament was very reluctant to pass the Canada trade deal, yeah.
And that took years to go through. That's not going to be a deal with America. Donald Trump leads the Anglosphere, the Anglo-Saxon economies around the world. He knows full well the trade deals are struck legally in the City of London. And he knows full well with the right trading team in England or United Kingdom, we can strike a deal with the Yanks and broker a deal for the European Union. Facilitate that.
Well, we could have done, Sean. Sean, we could have done all of that, and I'd have been very happy for us to do all of that. But I think the moment's gone for now, at least.
Well, you know what happens, Nigel? Towards the end of the deal, these suppliers in Germany will bang the cage of these politicians and these bureaucrats and say, listen, get this deal sorted out with the UK. It's too damned important. We need to trade. The tax year, what comes to the economies around Europe, pays for public services. The bureaucrats and the politicians have never run a balance sheet outside the state payroll.
No. Well, Sean, I said from the start, our main negotiating tactic should be to send representatives, ambassadors, out to meet the German car manufacturers, the Belgian chocolate makers, the French wine producers, to explain to those people that if Brussels acts as a barrier to a sensible trade deal, they're not acting in the interests of French and German and Belgian companies, they're acting in the interests of the political project. And I wanted us, Sean, to get as much pressure put on the Commission from day one. And you know something? We have done absolutely none of that. We've relied on a negotiation taking place between our civil service and their civil service, and they don't actually... Brussels doesn't actually want a deal. You may be right, Sean. We may get some common sense coming in towards the end, but I'm not so sure. Sean, I thank you for your call. Next time I'm on the train, do come, please, and say hello. Trump has played his hand very well. He has made RPM look ridiculous, I get by SMS. If only Mrs. May could watch and learn from Donald Trump how to do a deal with Jean-Claude Juncker. It was done at Donald's behest, on his patch, and expeditiously, says Graham in Exeter. This is an absolute joke. So the basic rules that we are struggling to break away from America, from and America gets special treatment. Ian, as I say, they're heading for a tariff-free deal without paying money, without having free movement of people, and without the European Court of Justice. Why could we not have done any of those things? Because we have just conceded. You only get your way with Brussels if you're tough and threaten something. I remember the French at the Edinburgh Summit back in the 1990s saying, right, we're going to veto EU enlargement unless you write into the treaties that the European Parliament will meet at Strasbourg 12 times every year. Everybody else buckled, and the travelling circus that is the European Parliament goes to Strasbourg 12 times a year. much to the economic benefit of the city of Strasbourg. That is how you win. Not, oh yes, of course we'll pay you 40 billion. Please, please, please be nice to us. It doesn't work like that. That's my view. Manjit is calling from Peterborough. Good evening.
Nigel, lovely to talk to you again. Nigel, I spoke to you on your Sunday morning show about 2 months ago.
Yep.
And I made the prediction, and I said to you, the EU have picked the wrong bully this time. They've bullied everybody else.
You did. Well done, you. Well done, you. Yeah.
And they're not going to bully this chap, and they will back down. He will get his way. And when he came here, what did we do? We put balloons up, we protested, we made stupid remarks about him. Mr. Juncker's gone down there, he's done the deal, which normally takes all these countries, it's impossible to do, and within one day he's done a deal with them, he's made agreements and this and that, and we're sitting here with our pants around our ankles, honestly, basically, I'm telling you, mate. Yeah. Honestly, I used to think that the EU was shafting us, but you know what it is? I think our own politicians are shafting us.
I think there's a bit of both of it, Manjit, but I have to say our whole negotiating strategy has been lamentable from the start, and I don't see any prospect of it getting better anytime soon. Do you?
What negotiating strategy?
Well,
is there a strategy? You tell me. I can't see it. Everything we've got, we've just given it to them, and then we want to negotiate. I mean, how is that negotiating?
Yeah, appeasement, Manjit, appeasement does not work, does it?
It doesn't work. And this guy is going to get his way, and he's got his way. And everybody said, oh, no, the EU will never back down. The EU won't do this.
And they
but
just
I guarantee you, the EU are going to put zero tariffs, and now they can turn around and say to us, you know what, we're 27 countries. We're stronger in here.
I know that.
You're on your own. You're not going to get nothing.
Yeah, no, well, listen, Manjit, thanks for calling again, and well done. You made a very big call. You got it absolutely right. And interestingly, yes, summer has not quite arrived in Brussels because our charming friend, Monsieur Barnier, the European Union's chief negotiator, has been speaking today, responding to the Chequers agreement. I'll tell you in a moment what he said. For now, you're listening to the Nigel Farage Show, exclusive on LBC, and it is 7:15. As Trump and Juncker do a deal, well, I'm asking, are we now at the back of the queue through our own hopeless negotiating strategy? Simon says to me on SMS, Nigel, stop putting Mrs May's Brexit plan down. Simon, I don't need to. Do you know why? Because this is what Monsieur Barnier said today.
The EU cannot, and the EU will not, delegate the application of its customs policy and rules, VAT and excises duty collection to a non-member who would not be subject to the EU's governance structures.
That's the equivalent, if you ever watched the Eurovision Song Contest, of nil point. So, it doesn't matter how many concessions we make. It doesn't matter that our own party, half of them seem to be saying that she's betrayed Brexit with the Chequers Accord. It still won't be accepted by Mr Juncker. There's nothing we can do that will be accepted by Barnier, Juncker and the Brussels crowd. They want to force us into a crisis. They want to force us, as we run up to the October the 18th deadline, to achieve a deal and terms upon which we leave. They want to force us into a crisis. They want to force us to delay Article 50, or failing that, have another referendum. That is my view. Tell me I'm wrong on 03456060973. Tell me she's doing wonderfully. Please tell me we're not at the back of the queue. Feels to me like we are. Anthony is calling from Staines. Good evening, Anthony.
Oh, good evening, Nigel.
So,
what I think we need to see, yes.
What happens now, Anthony? I mean, we're in quite a mess here, aren't we?
We've been quite a mess now for quite some time, haven't we? For about 2 years, is it? And we might argue 40 years for the EU. But what I think we need to see is a Theresa May that we haven't yet seen as Prime Minister, but we saw as Home Secretary.
Oh,
and that is the Theresa May that got out the knuckle dusters to the Police Federation.
Yeah.
A very uncompromising Theresa May, a tough Theresa May. And if that Theresa May can emerge out of this rubble, out of this mess, then we might just be saved.
But Anthony, we saw that Theresa May in the Lancaster House speech. That happened.
I know.
That happened. And actually, the truth is, when she was Home Secretary, she made big party conference speeches about immigration. We will deal with immigration. We will deal with the Human Rights Act. And do you know what she did, Anthony? She did absolutely nothing.
Well, like most Home Secretaries then, but she at least gave a veneer of doing something and convinced people.
Seems to me, Anthony, it seems to me that you're still placing faith that somehow this lioness-like figure is going to emerge from within Theresa May.
Well, it just has to, doesn't it? Because we got rid of Davis, who was used as a chocolate teapot.
Right.
So that's a good start, isn't it, in this final push towards next March. And, of course, let's look at the trade from the EU, or rather their trade with us.
Yep.
Let's look at Ireland, for instance, who are cutting up rough. Where do all their dairy products go?
Oh, and their beef. And their beef.
Yes, and...
Over 50% of Irish beef goes to the UK market.
Indeed. And where does that where does that beef go? It goes into ready meals. Did you know that half of the ready meals that we eat come from Ireland?
Do they?
It's a huge trade. Yes.
I didn't know that. No, thank you. I believe you. But Anthony, we know all this. We know that the Irish sell us beef, and the Germans sell us cars, and the French sell us wine, and the Belgians sell us chocolate and beer if we like it. I mean, we know all of this. But we don't seem. I mean, we don't seem to have any negotiating hand left. We've made so many concessions. We've been so weak all along the way.
Well, it's like we start growing a backbone. What I was thinking to myself, we need to see a Theresa May with the eyes of Theresa May, with the death stare of Theresa May, with the handbag of Thatcher, and the backbone of Churchill, with a bit of Rees-Mogg probably thrown in there somewhere.
Anthony, I really admire people like you. You're so wonderfully upbeat and optimistic, but I don't think there's a cat's chance in hell of any of it happening. I'm sorry, I really don't.
Fine.
We'll agree to disagree on polite terms, but I admire your optimism. Thank you very much indeed. On Twitter, doesn't matter what the negotiating strategy is, and yes, it is bad. The EU simply can't make it easy for the UK. If they did, other members would leave and the club would collapse. Sam, I get that. There is a political imperative for them offering all these things to America and not offering them to us. But at no stage in this have we been carrying a big, heavy stick. At no stage in this have we actually carried a threat of any kind at all. They are laughing at us, Sam. Jake is a new caller from Leeds. Good evening, Jake.
Hello, Nigel. Good evening. I hope you're enjoying the weather.
Well, I tell you what, I will be next week when I'm out of London for a couple of days, certainly, but it's pretty sticky in London, you know. But what's it like in Leeds?
It's very similar in Leeds. It's actually just rained a bit in Leeds, so I stood outside and cooled off a bit in the rain.
Very good.
Still very warm.
A free warm shower can't be bad. So, I mean, I'm being very pessimistic. I mean, I admire Trump for pushing hard and doing this deal. I actually give Juncker some credit. You know, he's had to eat a fair bit of humble pie to go to the White House and do what he did. And he did behave, actually, with some dignity, I thought. You know, because he's often made out to be this joke figure who's always drunk. Well, he looked pretty sober yesterday, I thought. But I just think we're being left behind everything, Jake.
I completely agree with you. I think all this stuff we've heard about, you can't have free trade access without freedom of movement and all this, is obviously not true, because today has proved that a third country can trade with the EU, free of tariffs and all of that. But the only difference between today's agreement and what's happening with Brexit is that the US have a much tougher negotiator. And I'm not exactly a fan of Donald Trump in any way, but you can tell that he's experienced in negotiating, whereas Theresa May and the government have... I mean, I thought that the Chequers plan was actually the only workable agreement they've come up with so far, because it was the basis of harmonising trade between us. But clearly the EU don't want to accept anything that we propose. They're going to keep on pushing, and it's not going to work.
You know, if we lie prostrate on the floor and say, do whatever you want to us, just give us a deal, they still won't give us a deal. Jake, they want to force a crisis in our country. They're getting pretty close. Thank you very much. Didn't you say it was easy, Jan says to me on Twitter. Well, actually, it's terribly easy. If you've got political will and you've got belief in what you're doing, it is actually very straightforward. But we have a Remainer Prime Minister who doesn't believe in what she's doing, has no experience of the business world whatsoever. I wonder, I get an SMS, what our blimp protesters are thinking of their wonderful European friends in Brussels doing deals with Trump. I'm sure they're absolutely horrified. Let's go to Bromley and speak to Kevin. Good evening, Kevin.
Good evening, Nigel. Nigel, we've got no chance of getting a deal whatsoever.
Right.
I've said many years ago, I mean, before there was even a referendum, that EU is a protection racket. And
yes.
that's exactly what it is. It's a protection racket. And the only way you deal with a protection racket is you simply say no.
Do you know, Kevin, they portray themselves as being these glorious, noble free traders in the European Union, and Trump the evil protectionist. And actually what Trump has done is to expose their hypocrisy.
Exactly.
The customs union puts puts tariff and regulatory barriers up right across the world, particularly, Kevin, to people in poor countries trying to sell shoes, bras, clothes, cut flowers, fruit and veg. So I agree with you. But do you agree with me that with the right leadership, we could have signed and sealed a deal with America that would have come into effect on March the 30th next year?
Well, of course I agree with you, and I'll tell you for why. We've got a Prime Minister who's a Remainer.
Uh-huh.
She selected her cabinet, 75% Remainers. She appointed David Davis and as a chief negotiator and undermined him with the civil service. He was just there as a figurehead. He wasn't the head. He was never the head of the negotiating.
He's undermined from the very start.
That's right. And same with the new guy.
Yeah.
They have no intention. They have no intention of leaving. It's the yokey-cokey, one leg in and one leg out.
Yeah, well, the new guy, Dominic Raab...
Let me make one more point.
Go on.
Nigel, I'd really like to make this point.
Go on.
The only way you can deal with a Conservative Party that's betrayed the people is at the ballot box. Make them suffer. My vote is going to UKIP. I don't care if there's only a dozen members. My vote's going to UKIP. And everybody I'm speaking to, I've been a Tory for all my life.
Mm. So, Kevin, did you vote for Theresa May last year?
Yes, I did.
You did. OK, fine. No, Kevin hacked off a Bromley, not impressed at all. Vince says, I don't think the UK is at the back of the queue. I don't think we've even found the queue yet. Well, that's probably right, Vince, given the way they're operating. John is calling from Hailsham. John, has this Prime Minister put us to the back of the queue?
Well, I think she has, Nigel. I mean, what I'd like to say, Nigel, I think what a terrible poor state we are now in when our voters have seemingly lost all faith in the Tory party but dread the prospect of another Labour administration coming in. I mean, every time May keeps trying to kid us, she is still in control. Well, we then next hear that Monsieur Barnier is making ever more unreasonable demands, and we feel we should go out. I feel we should go out on a no-deal basis and certainly not pay Brussels another £39 billion. It's unbelievable.
And Trump said to her, he said, look, don't pay them an exit fee. They owe you money. They have misused billions, tens of billions of pounds of your money. But John, do you remember that period back in the 1970s when the Conservative government had U-turned on virtually their entire 1970s manifesto? There was despair in the country at the Tory party. It led to ultimately a Labour Party. And I remember that mixture of despair and anger growing up in the 1970s. And I think under this leadership, we're almost heading back to that.
I think you're right, Nigel. I mean, the fact is, Theresa May talks the talk, but fails to walk the walk, and that's what the problem we've got. I mean, no one realistically has got any confidence that Theresa May is actually going to do what needs doing. And that's the situation we're in. And I think the fact of we may be handing over another £39 billion, unbelievable figure the taxpayers have got to shell out, and for what are we going to get in return for that? Very little.
John, am I cruel when I call the Prime Minister Theresa the Appeaser?
I think you're pretty much 100% right on the ball there.
Okay, John, thank you very much indeed. I was looking for an endorsement. I'm sure some of you would disagree. Come on, tell me the Prime Minister's doing a great job. Tell me we're at the front of the queue. Tell me our prospects are looking fabulous right at this moment in time. 0345 6060 973. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show exclusively on LBC. It is now 7:30. And well, as Juncker and Trump kiss and send out tweets saying how much they like each other, I think we finished up at the back of the queue here because of our own indecision, because America and much of the rest of the world simply does not think we're serious about breaking free from the European Union and being able to make our own deals. And I'm not happy about it. But let me say this, it isn't just the Conservative Party having problems, because a Sky data poll out today asked a simple question: is Jeremy Corbyn anti-Semitic? and 30% of the country said yes, and 33% said no. That's a big, big number. Now, admittedly, amongst Labour voters, that figure is lower, it's 10%, but it is actually quite difficult, to win over middle ground voters if that many people think. And it's not even a case of tolerating anti-Semitism, because 37% think he tolerates anti-Semitism, but nearly a third of the country think the leader of the opposition is anti-Semitic, and that is a real image problem, for Jeremy Corbyn. It's just one poll, it's a snap poll, but it does say something, I think, very, very interesting. Now, in the last couple of weeks, we've seen the passing of some very significant figures of that wartime generation. And quick tribute to them. 2 weeks ago, Wing Commander Tom Neal died. He had 14 kills in the Battle of Britain. He was the last but one surviving ace of the battle. We then lost Geoffrey Wellham, a squadron leader who flew at Biggin Hill in 1940. He was the youngest pilot in the Battle of Britain, who wrote a book called First Light. And if ever you want to read what it was like to be an 18-year-old lad up there fighting Messerschmitts, read it. And then this morning we learned that Mary Ellis was the last surviving woman that flew transport planes during the war. And I think sometimes we underestimate the role that women played. She flew everything from Spitfires to bomber planes, and she flew them from airfield to airfield all over the country, and she flew over 1,000 planes during the war. Pretty remarkable thing. And we're now left, when it comes to the Battle of Britain, with fewer than a handful of surviving people who actually took part in that epic battle. I thought worthy of paying tribute to those three people, and, as I say, remembering that women did some pretty remarkable things in World War II, not just the men. Right, back to... Are we at the back of the queue? Sue on Facebook says they are trying to force us into another referendum so that we can stay in the EU, just like they did with Ireland and the others. Yes, twice the Irish have been forced to vote again in referendums, and once it happened to the Danes. Roger da Costa makes a great point. He says the EU signed a free trade deal with Japan. Japan didn't pay $39 billion, didn't sign up to a customs union, didn't sign up to a single market, didn't have free movement of people. Roger, I agree with you, and on the terms being discussed with America, and it may take some time to sort the whole thing out, but it's exactly the same thing, and yet we are giving in to all of these things. And worse than that, Mrs May wants us to continue in regulatory alignment, meaning we're not able to make our own businesses more competitive than other European countries on our doorstep. The whole thing is amazing. Anthony is hugely unimpressed with Monsieur Barnier. He is disgusted of Greenwich. He says, I voted Remain. I'd vote Brexit now. I'm disgusted with the French and German bullies. Now it's time to walk away, plan for no deal, and go out to the world and trade. Well, Mrs May yesterday said she was planning for no deal. She was going to stock blood in blood banks and things like this. I don't think that was May preparing us for a no deal. I think that was May telling us that no deal would be catastrophic. But of course we're preparing for it. There is no chance of this Prime Minister agreeing to a no deal. None whatsoever, in my opinion. Let's go to Charles in Tottenham. Charles, good evening.
Good evening, Nigel. I'm very pleased with what happened, Nigel. Very pleased.
What with what happened with Trump and Juncker?
Yes. Well, not only that. Mm-hmm. Although, in a way, I have to say I don't trust Trump very much, because he's quite liable to change his mind again. No doubt, and he always does. But no, I'm pleased with Theresa. I think she's doing a great job.
Oh, really?
She's wonderful. Yes, she is.
Right. So tell me, Charles. So in one day of physical negotiations between Trump and Juncker, a deal, a remarkable deal, and sense of progress has been made. We have been meeting repeatedly with the European Union for a long time now. What have we achieved, Charles?
I think Theresa had a very hard job to do. David Cameron walked off, if you remember.
I don't doubt it's a tough job, Charles. I'm asking you. You say she's doing a great job, and I'm asking you, what has she achieved?
She maybe hasn't achieved what you think you would like her to achieve.
I'm asking, Charles. I'm asking you what she's achieved.
I think she's achieved the fact that the EU is still together. I think we should stay in from the point of view of the fact that if we leave, we're going to be poorer, we're going to be worse off.
I get it. I've sussed it. You think she's doing a good job because basically she wants to keep us in.
Yes, Nigel. And
fine. No, well, listen, that's deliciously honest. And it's really interesting, Charles, that you say that. Lord Malloch Brown, who is a close associate of George Soros and very much involved with the People's Vote campaign, when Lord Malloch Brown, an arch Europhile, praises the Chequers Agreement, I find it remarkable. Charles, you may like what she's done, but do you understand, Charles, how people who voted Brexit and people who voted for Theresa May, when they were promised, both those times we'd be leaving the single market, leaving the European Union, do you understand the anger in terms of democratic deficit that those people feel?
Yes, I do understand the anger, Nigel, and I respect the fact that they're angry, and I respect their views, but I just feel if we stay within Europe, we are going to have a wonderful time. It's going to be a lot better than what we've got now, and we're going to have better roads, we're going to have better infrastructure in our country, because they will help us everywhere they can.
They'll help us?
Yes, they will.
When have they ever helped us?
Nigel...
Charles, when have they ever helped us? Come on.
I'm sure. I've heard Barnier talk. He sounds like a nice man, actually. I wouldn't mind that.
Well, I tell you what, Juncker's a good, fun human being, though I disagree with him. Barnier's pretty austere, Charles. But, Charles, look, you've got your view, you believe in the European project, you express that honestly, and I absolutely respect that view. What I have a problem with is a Prime Minister who, gets elected on a manifesto of delivering a set of things and then does the opposite. And that, frankly, I find pretty loathsome. Charles, thank you. Great call. Charles, diametrically opposed to me politically, but, he thinks Theresa May's doing a great job because basically we're not leaving. That's what Charles thinks. What does Paul, a new caller from Welling, make of it all?
Hi, Nigel.
Hello.
First of all, I want to congratulate you. You played an absolute blinder in terms of getting us out of, getting us to the vote and getting us to this point. And I think you've done a good job so far. However, I think I have to put some of the blame of where we are in terms of UK versus Europe and the world at your feet, if I'm honest, a little bit. Probably because UK, I'm just giving a background. I'm a Brexiter. Worked with UKTI, worked with DTI, worked with Manufacturing Advisory Service. I believe Britain's strength came from trading. Before Europe, during Europe, and after Europe.
Oh, actually, Paul, for centuries, we were a mercantile nation. We built the biggest empire the world's ever seen on the back of our trading mercantile tradition.
Africa, we set up the USA, we set up Australia, we set up USA. We did all that so we can trade with them. But we traded from strength, whether by hook or by crook, we did trade. My problem is we are now in the position of potentially losing our strength. And the EU deal kind of blows against the whole argument that EU is slow and cumbersome, because in less than 2 hours, they did more than we as UK have been able to do in 2 years. And so we have to understand that maybe a lot of the problems we're facing with our trading abilities, not Europe, because Germany has more traders than we do, it's UK's own ability to have vision. So that's why I voted for Brexit, to kick our asses and get us out into the world. But you can't keep dividing us, Nigel, because if you snooker Theresa May anymore, there is nothing she can do.
All right, Paul, I tell you what, if I was not to criticise her one little bit, what do you think I'll be doing on March the 29th next year at 11 p.m? Do you think I'll be celebrating leaving the European treaties?
No, but if you look, all of us watch TVs, all of us have eyes and ears and memories, and we all saw people saying it's going to be like Norway, it's going to be like Sweden, it's going to be like this, it's going to be like that, and the goalposts kept on changing, and people kept on getting angrier and more polarised, which means for her, there's nothing she can bring home that is ever going to be a winner for anybody. And the rest of the world is watching. Our old colonies are watching, and they're going to beat us soon. Because
and then now, and Paul, they're laughing at us. They're laughing at us. I mean, when you think about it, the Chequers summit 3 weeks ago, 2 years after the referendum, when the cabinet are finally deciding what their policy is.
Exactly. And that's the point. And I think somebody like you, and I know you won, and I know you were laughed at for 15, 20 years, I get that. Yeah. But I think somebody like you needs to just stop it a little bit with everything being wrong. And because the reason people are not backing Brexit is not because Brexit is a bad idea. It's because Brexit has come up with nothing better than a tagline Ramona and a couple of get back our borders, all that nonsense. There's a real strategic goal for us, and we need somebody to articulate that, and people will follow it. Remainers are not remaining because they're scared of Europe or they want UK SSR, they're George Soros, all these nonsense conspiracy theories. They're remaining because they don't believe in the vision, because they haven't been told one.
No.
It's called named, called...
This is a failure. Paul, I'm with you. I'm completely with you. This is not a failure of Brexit. It's a failure of a government to put Brexit through and to give the country some lead and some vision. I thank you for your call. You know full well, Nigel, Juncker went to the US to prevent an all-out trade war, so they were talking tariffs. It's not the same as negotiating a Brexit deal. It's a more complex issue. I get that, Scott. It is a more complex issue, but you've just seen not only what can be done in a short space of time, but what happens with the European Union if you're prepared to carry a big stick and they think, golly, they might actually use it. Funny then, what happens? You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show exclusively on LBC, and it's 7:45. As Trump and Juncker talk trade and suddenly kiss and make up, we seem to be very much at the back of the queue, despite the fact the incoming Trump administration was desperate to do a bilateral trade deal, and one of Trump's close advisors said to me, can we get this done in 3 months? I said, well, hang on a second, it's going to take us a bit more time than that. We've got to get out of the Article 50 process. Little then did I know, we'd then go for a transition period and stop being taken seriously. One bit of good news today, I think, is announcement that specialist doctors in the UK will be able to legally prescribe cannabis-derived medicinal products by the autumn, and that's been announced today by Sajid Javid, the Home Secretary. And that follows, of course, those cases you might remember of Billy Caldwell and Alfie Dingley, who did, without doubt, respond well to these cannabis-derived products, and that, I think, is a good change in the law. I don't think it opens up the door, for wholesale legalisation of cannabis. That's a separate debate. I think this is a sensible decision. One of those things we have debated before. I've no doubt we will debate again. David is a new caller from Frinton-on-Sea. How are you doing, David?
Very well, Nigel. Very well. Good to speak to you.
Good to speak to you. So, are we at the back of the queue now?
We don't have to be, Nigel. We could be at the front of the queue.
Right, how?
We just go straight into WTO terms.
Yep.
To start pushing the benefits of WTO terms and shutting down the likes of Alistair Campbell and Anna Soubry to actually promote what the actual WTO terms mean. And with Taoiseach turn around and say we can't fly, where we control the airways.
No, isn't it amazing? You do realise, David, that nowhere else in the world can you fly aeroplanes apart from the European Union?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just nuts. These arguments are bonkers, aren't they?
It is. It is really bonkers. And I just feel that the Brexiteers need to, start standing up, actually coming out of summer recess and actually saying the deal has failed, it's not going anywhere, we need to push forward on WTO terms.
But isn't the problem, David?
And that argument of the Ramona.
Isn't the problem, David, that they've now gone on a 6-week recess? They had a fortnight of parliamentary time after Pacheco's deal to sort this out, to provide a challenge, to push for a new leader, and they've done pretty much nothing.
Well, there's nothing stopping them from doing it in their recess.
True.
They've all got access to media. They're all in newspapers. Call it out now.
Yeah, right, fine. Well, David, listen, I hope they do. And David there from Frinton-on-Sea, one of the most Eurosceptic parts of the country, and we had Charles from Tottenham on earlier, which is one of the most pro-EU parts of the country. So we've got the debate covered here. Evening, Nigel. I'm with my friend who voted Remain. I voted Leave. We both do not understand how the EU have agreed trade deals with Japan and the USA, yet all we hear is we're going to crash out with no deal or pay 39 billion. Can you explain this, please? Says Mark in Pimlico. Mark, the EU hitherto has been very, very slow at signing trade deals. Brexit seems to have sparked them on a little bit, and they've made progress with Japan, and they're now trying to make, well, after some fairly intense pressure, trying to make some progress with the USA. But the relationship with us is political. He does not, Barnier, wish to be seen to treat us on those terms, because he fears if that happens, the Italians will want it, the Danes will want it, and goodness knows who else will want it. The European Union, folks, is in much bigger trouble than anyone realises. Eurosceptic parties on the left, centre and right are growing across the continent. They have to be seen to punish the Brits. So we're playing a game here that we are going to lose. We're playing by Queensberry rules against a group of people who are behaving like thugs. We cannot win on this trajectory. We need a new leader and one final attempt, after we've been to visit the car manufacturers, the winemakers, and everything else, to say, look, if you really do want to hurt your exporters, we'll make sure they know about this. We'll make sure they know who the guilty men are. It's not us in the United Kingdom. We might just jolt them into their senses. And if we can't, well, as our previous caller said, we go to the same terms of trade that this country currently has with China and with America. Believe you me, no shortage of containers coming into Felixstowe or Southampton today coming from China. None whatsoever. Tom is a new caller from Beverley in Yorkshire. Hi, Tom.
Hi, nice to meet you, Nigel. I haven't spoke to you in a while since Grimsby question time many years ago. But,
you were in the audience there, were you?
I was, yes, and I made a comment basically, I can't remember, it was a Labour MP, but he was pushing for a sugar tax or something.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's not surprising that Labour's pushing for a tax on sugar, because there's push for a tax on everything. But there we go.
There we go. That was then. This is now. Well, I mean, Grimsby was that was a few years ago, wasn't it? I did question time at Grimsby.
Yeah, it was quite a few years. Yeah,
4 years ago, 5 years ago. A lot's happened since then. I just can't believe that any Prime Minister could be handling this worse than Theresa May is.
I think it's just absolutely ridiculous what's happened. It's actually a disgrace the way that this country is being treated. I think what it is we're actually being undermined by the European Union. They want to drag this out. They want to make us look weak, and this is why they've actually done a deal with America. They've done a deal with Japan, and with us, we're simply at the back of the queue. It's true, but it's not done by choice. It's done on purpose because they're trying to undermine us. Because this is crucial. We need to somehow get a good deal, whether it's WTO or some kind of negotiation. It's crucial because other countries are looking at us right now who want to do trade deals with us. And we can't be seen to being weak. If we're weak in front of the European Union.
They were queuing up. Sort of over 20 countries had expressed publicly their desire to do trade deals with us. Australia, Canada, Japan. I mean, nearly 24 publicly saying they want to get on with it. That's back when they were taking us seriously. That's back when they thought we'd crack on, sort out Brexit, and whilst we were doing that, we could simultaneously negotiate with them and move on from there. Tom, they're not taking us seriously anymore, believe me. Thanks for your call. Bernadette asks me, you come on LBC 5 times a week and all you do is slag off Theresa May. No, I don't. We don't discuss her some nights at all. We discuss other issues too. Don't you have anything nice to say about her? Bernadette, I'm sure she's very nice to her own middle-class friends. That's about the best I can do right at this moment in time. We got time for one last caller tonight, and it's Dennis from Bournemouth. Dennis, hello.
Yeah, good evening, Nigel.
So, it was a remarkable moment last night, seeing those two leaders, wasn't it?
Well, I don't think we should get tracked onto that. I mean, Trump is a supporter of Brexit. He was even before it happened.
Yep.
We've got no problem doing a deal with America. It's not the real issue. The real issue here is that we've got a patsy. Do you understand the term patsy in business terms?
Yeah, go on. Well, you explain it. You explain it to the broader audience.
Yeah. I mean, a patsy is someone who's doing a deal and makes concessions every time. So say they're negotiating for a contract, someone puts a price up, it's not accepted, they lower the price, they accept the next lowest price, they accept the lowest price, and so on. Until in the end, the other party, if you like, in this case the EU, gets everything they want. So the real issue is Theresa May. She has got to go. Now, we've got the Conservative, I'm a Conservative Party member.
Yep.
We've got the Conservative Party conference coming up in the autumn. Now, 75% of members, I've read, of the Conservative Party are Brexiteers.
But, Dennis, it'll be too late by then. It'll be too late by then.
We can't say too late. All right, we're late, but we've got to get rid of her, get someone else in, like Boris Johnson or Rees-Mogg or somebody like that, and then they can start to turn the clock back and play it from the way it should have been played right from the start. There's no option other than that,
Dennis,
as far as I'm concerned.
As somebody who pays his subs to the Tory party, at what point, living in Bournemouth, do you throw your membership card into the sea? Metaphorically, of course. We don't want plastic litter, but you know what I mean.
No, I'm prepared to throw it into the sea, and I think about a very large percentage of the Tory party membership will be prepared to throw it into the sea. The real issue is she just listens to her advisors. She did that over the social care policy. She's not her own woman. She's not a leader. She's a backroom girl, a kind of technocrat.
Agreed.
She can't do it.
Tick, tick, tick. Dennis, we agree. Thank you. Bernadette, I'm sorry if you think I'm endlessly negative about the Prime Minister, but I have to say, over the course of the last 9 months or so, my predictions about the concessions she would make have been pretty accurate, I'm sorry to say. I wish I'd been wrong. You've been listening to The Nigel Farage Show here on LBC. I'll be back on Sunday morning at 10 o'clock. At 10 tonight, it's Ian Collins, but up next, it's Clive Bull.
Nigel, thank you.